This is weird.
From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the Witching Hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am Frosty, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I'm doing pretty good. I wish you were doing better.
It's not so bad to keep me off. I do have a little bit of a cough and a little bit under the weather today.
Yes.
But still excited to be here for our show tonight. Always look forward to Mondays, so wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So that's where we're at tonight. I hope everyone else is doing wonderful out there, and hoping that all of our friends up in the Northeast are doing well. Some under 3 feet of snow.
Wow.
Hopefully everyone's doing out there with all that weather, whether you want it or not. Hoping everyone is safe out there. Glad to have you all in tonight. We got a great show for you tonight. We'll talk about more about that in just a second, but thank you all for coming in. It's exciting to see everyone here again tonight. Thank you for everyone who's coming in to hang out with us tonight. And just want to remind you, this is audience participation, so feel free to leave comments and questions for us and for our guests tonight. To catch everybody up, I guess, on what we have going on. We do have Teamwear Takeover 2026 approaching quicker and quicker. I had the phone with them today. I didn't even got to tell you about that, Jenny.
Oh, you did.
It is going to be at the Lord Baltimore Hotel in Baltimore, Maryland. And we are going to have guests and lectures and all kinds of things there. And we're going to get to do a live investigation of the Lord Baltimore Hotel. And we're going to have a seance with Sam Baltrusis himself. So we got a very fun couple of days planned there. And if you would like, you can get your tickets. There are limited amounts left. If you go to the witchinghourspodcast.com and click on the merch store, it'll take you over to Fourth Wall, and you can buy your tickets and join us at Teamwear Takeover.
Yay.
2026. We got lots of stuff going on. It's going to be a busy year.
Yes.
I feel like everyone said, all the people that we're running into, a lot of our guests are like, I'm taking it easier this year. I'm not doing as much this year. But then when I see all their posts on social media, it's a whole lot this year. So.
Has been determined that was a lie.
All right. Well, wonderful. Okay. Are we ready to get into some weird news?
Yes, sir.
All right, as I said, welcome in everybody. I see Irene's here. There's something I wanted to mention that I've been leaving off at the beginning, just out of force of habit. I'm always trying to get to our guests, and so I kind of rush, to get to the news. The Spirit Realm Network. We broadcast through the Spirit Realm Network. Mm-hmm. We've enjoyed being part of the Spirit Realm Network, and the Spirit Realm Network has a lot of new programming. So I wanted to let everybody know, make sure that you go over on Facebook and follow the Spirit Realm Network. There are all kinds of shows and more that I can't tell you guys everything, but there's a lot more coming.
Lots of new shows with new people, some of which will be coming on the show, or our show.
Yeah, and I want to have anyone who wants to come on out of all those shows, just a matter of getting it booked and in there. Of course, Irene and Danica are going to be coming on our show again. We have some booked already. So go over, make sure you're going over to Facebook. If you're watching us somewhere else on Twitch, if you're watching later on YouTube, go over to Facebook, follow the Spirit Realm Network. We have all kinds of mediums and animal readings, pet readings. They have all kinds of other programs coming your way. And there's a lot of big news that's going to be coming out for Spirit Realm Network. So we're looking forward to being part of that. And
also a lot of things in the works.
Some more investigations, which are going to be fun. So we're always looking forward to that. So make sure you're doing that. Okay, first story tonight. We have to get to this. It was big news this week. President Trump announced that the government should release all files released to extraterrestrials, alien life, and UFO UAP documents. What do we think, Jenny? I mean, the first kind of news that I got, if we're not sure how this came about, there was President Obama was on a podcast. Wasn't familiar with the podcast, so I would get the name. And it was like a very quick, like, we don't do this on ours, but it's like maybe sometimes very at the very end where it's like, well, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
We do every once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guest, the podcast asked President Obama about aliens. And he said, they're real, but I haven't seen them. And there's none underneath Area 51 or anything like that. And then they moved on to the next question.
Yeah.
Like, unlike this show where I've been like, what? Real? The guy just moved on. All right. Now, probably not. It wasn't like the witching hour. So people are just going to move on. So then President Obama comes out and kind of clarifies that he hasn't seen any evidence of them, but he supposes there has to be extraterrestrial life because of the size of our universe and so on and so forth. So it's actually more of a statement.
Yes. Well, it got cut down into a little short, and that's what went viral. Yeah.
Yes. So the next day, President Trump is in a press conference, with the press, and they ask him about that, and his response is that President Obama shouldn't have said that because he was releasing classified information.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because what kind of classified information was he talking about? So he goes on to say that he was going to save President Obama so he wouldn't get charged with anything, but maybe he would help him out a little bit. And fast forward a little bit of time. I can't remember if it was later that day or the next day. He makes the announcement on social media that he was going to ask the government to release any documents related to UFOs, UAPs, ET, whatever. And then we haven't heard anything else since then, I don't think. So what do you think, Jenny?
Cole Drake said Trump had to one-up a comment from President Obama. Release all the files. We know how far that got.
Right.
And then I guess to me, really, my thought is that I don't think that Trump has the authority to do it.
Yeah.
Even though he's the president, we know historically the presidents don't actually have knowledge, it seems like, or authority over stuff like that. So
it doesn't seem that presidents do.
No. So I don't think that unless he signs some executive order or something, I don't know what they're going to be able to release, if anything. And, we've seen stuff released before and it has black Sharpie all over it.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. Are we just going to get a whole bunch of documents that say, Department of Defense or something, and then it's just black lines through everything?
It'll be like the word "the" black line, the word "a" black line, and maybe they'll throw in like an adjective or something. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.
I don't take anything. I think sometimes I feel bad even bringing some of this news up on the show. But I mean, if we're not going to talk about it here, where in the heck are you going to talk about it? And so, I think this is just more of the same for me. This is exactly the same kind of things that have been happening as with the congressional hearings. I think this is a way to do some kind of soft disclosure, but at the same time, to desensitize people. I think this is part of a desensitization, whatever that word is, process to a certain degree. I also think, like you said before, it's also been put there for confusion,
confused
to provide
awareness.
And I also think that this is a lot of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We have the Epstein files that have been released. The Epstein files are the news. There's people, at least one person who's been arrested today. There was someone else who was arrested. I feel like there's a house of cards that could come down from this. And and if there's any evidence that we need of that, we don't need to look very far from how busy the news has been the last month in order to provide some kind of distraction to what's going on. And I guess that's kind of where I'll leave that.
Yes.
But let us know in the comments. I mean, a lot of you already have. I've been putting them up there. But, if you think something serious could come out of this, let us know. I think this is more of the same for the time being, at least until Spielberg's movie comes out in June. Then maybe we'll get it for real then.
I don't know.
Story number 2, imagination isn't just for humans. To primatologists around the world, Kanzi was a star. After years of training with sign language and a specialized keyboard, the 44-year-old bonobo had gained an unusually sophisticated understanding of human words, making him the focus of decades of research into non-human primates' language abilities. But there has been some other things that have been going on at Johns Hopkins University with Christopher Krupp, probably going to mess this up, Kruppene. And this is dealing with Kanzi's imagination. So he passed, Kanzi did, the bonobo in 2025. But they started talking about how they would do act out like a child's tea party with him. And they would pour, empty pitchers into empty glasses, just like you would if you were kind of sitting down sometimes with a child and having like a big tea party. And the human experimenter picked up one of the glasses, pretended to pour the non-existent liquid back into the pitcher and set the empty glass down. And then they encouraged the bonobo to point to the glass that still contained liquid. More than 2/3 of the time, he would point to the glass filled with make-believe juice, the first experimental evidence that primates other than humans can conceive of imaginary objects. This is one of the most sort of remarkable discoveries I've ever made, the doctor said. The discovery, reported by the doctor and colleagues today in Science, not only shows that imagination is not uniquely human, but also suggests imagination may have arisen millions of years ago, deeper in primates' evolutionary past. The fact that this is present and that it has been tested in this experimentally controlled way is just so exciting, because it suggests some capabilities where there even before we split from the chimps and bonobos, that there was a possibility of imagination and make-believe taking place. I thought that was interesting.
I think that in order for any creature, human or otherwise, to come up with something new, even if it's just a simple tool, there has to be some sort of imagination, because it's not something they've ever done before. So how do they come up with it?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things I think this is kind of going into, because there's still debate going around the creation of tools and stuff like that with primates. Yeah. So interesting nonetheless there.
But we know plenty of them do it.
Story number 3, a 3-year heat wave bleached half the planet's coral reefs.
Oh, dang.
A study published on Tuesday showed that more than half of the world's coral reefs were bleached between 2014 and 2017. There was a documentary on Netflix about this that I'd watched too. A record-setting episode now being eclipsed by another series of devastating heat waves. The analysis concluded that 51% of the world's reefs endured moderate or worse bleaching, while 15% experienced significant mortality over the 3-year period known as the third global bleaching event. It was by far the most severe and widespread coral bleaching event on record, said Sean Connolly, one of the study's authors. And yet, reefs are currently experiencing an even more severe fourth event, which started in early 2023. Unless ocean temperatures return to more tolerable levels, bleached corals are unable to recover and can eventually die of starvation.
Dang, it's awful.
Yeah, there was a good documentary on Netflix about this. And, of course, not just the reefs, but all the life that's in the reefs. And there's so many places in the ocean, we kind of think that the oceans are just kind of full. Like there's these huge oceans, they're just full. But, we're starting to find that there's kind of just sections, kind of like the land where
Yeah.
things are just more inhabitable than and the
Mhm.
ocean's the same way. And a lot of these are the reefs. So definitely not good news there.
Nope.
So there we go. And then number 4 tonight is the direwolves that we talked about from Colossal Biosciences.
The cloned ones that aren't really dire wolves.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You know,
Okay.
direwolves brought back from extinction are now fully grown, and
Mhm.
they are hunting together in a pack of 3.
Okay.
So Colossal
How big did they end up getting? Does
Biosciences
it say?
it doesn't say. I don't think the direwolves introduced in 2025 as part of the company's de-extinction efforts have reached a major milestone. Now that they're hunting in a pack. The bioengineering company unveiled previously unseen footage at the grand opening of its Dallas headquarters, showing the fully grown wolves moving together through snow and sharing a meal, a sign executives say of both physical maturity and social stability. They're good at the hunting part, but they're bad at the killing part. So they brought back a very live bunny, Matt James, Colossal's chief animal officer, told the news, recalling one of the wolves' first successful chases. Since then, the wolves, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, have improved. They've mastered the bunnies, noting that the wolves are now attempting to pursue larger prey, including deer. While it remains unclear whether they've completed a full deer hunt, the direwolves' natural condition and instincts appear to be present. I guess the question is, are they hunting like direwolves or are they hunting like red wolves?
How would we know?
Question. Yeah, wow, that's kind of
We
the issue,
wouldn't.
right?
Yeah.
I guess you could see if there's differences to how red wolves hunt, because you do have the red wolves. So if they're hunting differently than a red wolf, then maybe
that's true.
there could be some of that. But there's no DNA there.
The 6 month puppies were the males weighed over 90 pounds, but at 10 months they exceeded 115 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
They're expected to reach 6 feet in length and 150 pounds.
150 pounds. And the question is, I mean, I get so I know they changed the DNA, but there's actually no direwolf DNA, right? Like they just changed the red wolf DNA. So yeah, I don't know. That one's a weird one for me.
Yep.
And they're the ones, this Colossal Biosciences are the ones that are also talking about the woolly mammoths.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious, so are we just going to get hairy elephants? Is that what we're going to get? Like African elephants with a bunch of hair on it where their DNA's been changed? And what is that really going to tell us about
yeah.
the mammoth?
What's the point?
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, moving on, one of the, I think, most dire situations that we have
puns
in our world right now.
Feeling good enough for the puns.
Yeah, there we go. Is the grandson of the inventor of the Reese's peanut butter cups accuses Hershey's of cutting corners. The grandson of the inventor of the Reese's peanut butter cup has lashed out at the Hershey company, accusing the candy company of hurting the Reese's brand by shifting to cheaper ingredients in many of their products. Hershey acknowledges some recipe changes, but said Wednesday that it is trying to meet consumer demand for innovation. High cocoa prices have led Hershey and other manufacturers to experiment with using less chocolate in recent years. Brad Reese, 70, said in a February 14th letter to Hershey's corporate brand manager that for multiple Reese's products, the company replaced milk chocolate with compound coatings and peanut butter with peanut cream. How does the Hershey company continue to position Reese's as its flagship brand, a symbol of trust, quality, and leadership, while quietly replacing the very ingredients that built Reese's trust in the first place? Reese wrote in a letter, which he posted on his LinkedIn profile. He is the grandson of H.B. Reese, who spent 2 years at Hershey before forming his own company in 1919. Hershey said Wednesday that Reese's peanut butter cups are made the same way they always have been, with milk chocolate and peanut butter, that the company makes itself from roasted peanuts and a few other ingredients, including sugar and salt. But some Reese's ingredients vary, Hershey said. So essentially what this comes down to is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has strict ingredient labeling requirements for chocolate to be considered milk chocolate. And the product has to contain at least 10% chocolate liqueur, which is a paste or whatever. And if they can't, then they're not allowed to call it milk chocolate, or they're not allowed to call it whatever it is. And they don't. They haven't met the requirement for that. So for some of their candy bars, they have to call it chocolate candy. They can't name it. They can't say that it's milk chocolate. And Reese's saying that the Reese cups now are not edible. He said he used to eat a Reese's product every day, and now he can't, and that's very devastating for him. So,
I think this has just been about 40 years of companies doing this. The ammonia and the burger meat. I'm throwing Girl Scout cookies under the bus. We had the tag-alongs, which aren't called that anymore. They're called some peanut patties or whatever. And whatever you just described about the Reese's peanut butter cup, that's tasted the same. Did not taste like chocolate. It left a really awful residue in your mouth. And like the peanut, there wasn't as much peanut butter in it. And my guess, it probably wasn't peanut butter. And like the cookie was like stale-ish. Like, come on, Girl Scout cookies.
The Thin Mint was very disappointing. The Thin Mint was like chemically, and it was like almost overpowering. Like instead of actually having like I don't know. It
probably wasn't a real mint flavor anymore, Yeah.
Well, that's been a big part of things going on. We've seen that with not being able to call like what I'm not trying to get sued here, but Breyers or whatever, where like they have to list their ice cream as a frozen dessert because it doesn't have enough milk in it to.
It won't melt.
Yeah.
So. It's like a McDonald's French fry doesn't rot. Anyway, let's get on to our guest, Frosty.
And that was the weird news. Mark Hunter Brooks, author of the book Earth's Hidden Reality, has had numerous spiritual experiences since 2003 that have profoundly changed his worldview. Today, he writes and speaks about the mechanics of the non-physical world, helping make what many consider to be the mystical easier to understand. Professionally, Mark Hunter Brooks managed multiple IT and business projects for a Manhattan-based Fortune 100 financial services firm, returning for the sixth time, guys.
Sixth time.
For time number 6 tonight. Please welcome back to the show, Mark Hunter Brooks. How are you doing, Mark?
How are y'all? Hey, Jenny Lee. Hey, Frosty. Glad to be back. And might I say, I am no GMOs, all natural, organic. No preservatives, no nothing.
There you go. There you go. I'm not someone who, I don't have a good diet. I've never really cared about those things. But I've noticed in the last few years, I've had to start taking things like that into consideration because I don't even know how to explain it. I wasn't ever concerned whether I was eating nutritious food or organic food or healthy food necessarily, but it was still food nonetheless. Now I think we're getting into a point where it's not just about not eating healthy food, but that what we could be eating isn't food at all. It can't even be categorized as food.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary. And that's kind of what caught my attention about that recently. What was another one that we were talking about the other day? Like a creamer for our coffee.
Yeah.
And I've read the ingredients in it and there was no dairy in it at all. There was no cream. There was no milk. There was nothing. And I was like, what in the heck are we even putting in our coffee,
Yeah.
Right. I try and do half and half whenever I can.
Yeah.
And I can tell you a good story too. A number of years ago, there was a friend of mine. She and her husband and son came over to eat lunch with my family. And this woman, she kept her family on a very tight diet. And after we had dinner or after we had lunch, we served coffee. And the husband just went off on the coffee. He says, "Oh, this is the best stuff I've ever tasted in my life. What is it? Did you get it special ordered? Was it special ground? What did you do?" And it turned out that we had put half and half in as a creamer, and she had been giving him skim milk. And when he realized that, she gave me a dirty look. It's like, how dare you? It was fun.
Well,
yeah.
Last time we had them over for lunch. So.
Never came back. Scared them away with the half and half.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
I wanted to ask you, as I told you before the show, I was watching the first 2 episodes you were on. I wanted to ask you if you had any ice cream tonight.
I had a little bit of chocolate.
There we go.
A little bit.
Was it ice cream?
And it was the chocolate milkshake, but that was a good question. I was thinking about asking you guys if you had chocolate or some ice cream too.
Actually, we had some Girl Scout cookies, but it wasn't the crappy ones.
Oh, okay.
It was some decent Girl Scout cookies.
Those are always
yeah. We have a household here, so we bought the cookies, realized how bad they were, and they were like, "Hey guys, if anybody wants any crappy cookies, they're up in the cabinet."
They were gone, so they're gone.
Yeah. And that's the way it goes. Yeah, lots of comments in chat about the state of our food system. So I don't know. That would be something to talk about down the road too, to have someone come on and talk about that.
Yeah.
So I did have a comment about the UAP story on the Weird
Yes,
News.
please tell us. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, that was my fault.
Technical difficulties.
So that's what happens when I have a comment about your news.
My notebook is like all big and giant, and I just hit the keyboard and it janked it all up. But anyway, Mark, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, some groups, and I know about the Theosophical Society, they believe that the reason for our existence on Earth is consciousness development. And they actually have a book written by a guy named Arthur Powell. It's called The Solar System. And in it, he details how every planet in the solar system is involved in the process of consciousness development. And you can even extend that to say, and we can even talk about that tonight, is the whole universe is involved in consciousness development. So when you talk about aliens and UAPs and stuff, I sit there and think they're going through the same stuff we're going through here on Earth. Is they're flying around in their UFOs or UAPs, coming to these planets to try and save them or prevent nuclear war or stop this or promote that. And I just see it as something going on elsewhere in the universe that's very similar to what we're doing here on Earth. So I don't doubt that aliens exist and UAPs exist. And I really think they're all benevolent too, because I think the more your consciousness develops, the more you're going to be driven by love instead of fear or anger or hatred or whatever. So I think they're probably much more benevolent than people would give them credit for.
I agree.
Yeah, I think, that's been a common theme from a lot of the guests that we've talked to, and coming from your streams, Jenny, your Friday night streams, Fridays with Medium Jenny Lee. Is this idea, it's almost like two worlds colliding. One is the science fiction UFO, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., the X-Files, whatever. And then there's kind of like the woo-woo world with E.T. and the communications that are coming along, and extra dimensional beings that are here to kind of help move human beings on to a higher consciousness or understanding. But, the one thing, I think for your point, Mark, is that over the last few years, I've really noticed that those two things are combining together. This scientific or sci-fi extraterrestrial is merging. The idea, the mainstream idea of those two things are merging together. Would you guys agree with that?
Go ahead.
I think so. Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of something we were talking about before the show started too, is that Mark wanted to talk about how the paranormal is starting to seem like it's the norm, or the weird is starting to seem like it's the normal.
Yeah, we were talking about that before,
and it's becoming more mainstream, and I think all of that kind of fits into it. Mark, you want to talk more about that?
Well, I probably said this before on earlier episodes and stuff, but you can think of as our consciousness grows and we realize that we're eternal beings instead of humans and stuff, we're going to be governed less and less by fear and more by love. Because if you know you're an eternal being, you have no fear of death. There's nothing like that in your repertoire. So the only thing you can be driven by is love for somebody else. And I think that's going to be more the case as people grow their consciousness over time, as we get more and more people up to those levels of consciousness.
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
It has to. That has to be what happens. Please.
They're making those things
Please
really
don't come
hard.
No. Go ahead, Frosty.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
That kind of segues into one of the things that I wanted to bring back up from the very first time you were ever on the show, which it was 6 times ago, and also 3 years ago, and also it was February. So it's like this is like the 3-year anniversary of hanging out with Mark Hunter Brooks on Witching Hours. And that episode, you had mentioned that love and being there for each other and being vulnerable you thought that it was something that we were moving more towards.
Yes.
And then when we did our prediction show for this year, we talked about how last year was the year of the hermit, which you said you also were feeling hermit-like last year.
I have literally been a hermit. I'm saying that early on the show, so I've literally been a hermit if you ask me about things that I don't know.
This year, we all felt that it was more of an energy of us realizing that we had to be together and we had to work together and we had to come together to help each other and be in community and be in communion again. So I thought that was very profound and fitting that 3 years ago you were talking about how you thought we were gonna need to be moving toward that, and that it was moving toward that, and here we are with our 2026 thinking that might be what we really need to focus on.
Right. And as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking about all the people who find it difficult to relate to other people now, in this day of electronics and smartphones and doom scrolling and all these other things. It's very hard to relate to somebody one-on-one or in person with each other. You'd rather do it, over a chat or a text or a phone call or something like that. But I think there's something that's been lost that really needs to come back. And not only for loving each other, but also selfless, sacrificial giving, because I think if we hit hard times in the country or in the world and stuff, it's going to be upon each of us to help support each other. And as people are going through hard times, it's the people who pitch in and say, here, you can have this, or you can have that, or I don't need this, you can have it. And then return the favor later on. That's how everybody survives. And I know there's certain groups of people here in the U.S. who are living paycheck to paycheck, or who may have struggles in making their rent as well as putting food on the table, that they're doing that already. And they, in one sense, they're ahead of us, ahead of a lot of people who are insisting on being individualistic, because you really do need to share and be part of a group. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge for humanity, is to be able to work as a group to help each other and to love each other, as opposed to, being competitive and beating somebody out and stuff like that. That doesn't work in the bigger scheme of things.
No. And that was exactly what came through in my connecting with higher self reading for the new year, was that it kept saying, you need to help each other, help your neighbor, you take care of each other. Like, that was the biggest message for this year.
Yeah. Chico Cast said in chat, which is why we need to be doing it. Those of us who understand love is the answer need to find ways to keep the hope alive with acts of kindness. P.S. Don't have to like everyone to be loving and kind. You
don't have to like them to give them love.
This is something that me and you have talked about recently too. And just, the economy for us right now is not the best. I think most people could agree on that.
Yeah.
For the average, American. And I just know that
the world too.
Yeah, that is very true. And for sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, or in other words, people become desperate and maybe have to, get in tough situations. And we're just going to see more of that. We're going to see more people right now being put in hard positions. And I think it would be good. This is a time where we need to kind of instead of blaming each other for these issues, to be able to realize that we're struggling and try to give each other a helping hand. That sense of, well, like you said, Janine, that sense of community that we talked about for 2026, you know, for sure.
And just to add one more thing, I think it's easy for somebody to give away something that they don't use or that they don't need. But it's a lot harder for you to give away something that you're currently using lightly, but somebody else might have a desperate need for it or a much more significant need for it. And there's two ways you can learn. You can either experience it or have someone else tell you that their experiences. And so maybe us talking about it now would help people when they get in a situation to where somebody needs something that you're using, that you feel like you can part with it, to go ahead and kind of push yourself to give it away, to do that sacrificial giving.
Yeah. I like it.
It's hard.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's easy, but it creates a change in your mental mindset too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And what do people say in the comments?
Oh, well, there's been a lot. Well, that's what Chico Cat had said there, specifically about loving. And then we were talking a lot about earlier, they were talking a lot about the food stuff that we were talking about, but that specifically was the idea of the love needing to spread. That was one of the big things that came across in our New Year's prediction show. Allison had that come up in hers. You had it come up in yours. Mine not specifically, but mine did have the idea that it was going to become it was going to be a tough economy in 2026. So,
right. So if we look at this from a spiritual standpoint, what do you think is going on? If you have a tough economy, what do you think the spiritual reason is for that? If you look at it from that perspective instead of from a human 3D perspective.
Well, challenges always give us the opportunity to make choices for growth. We can choose to be of service to others, or we can choose to be service to ourselves. So it's providing opportunity for choice, which ultimately leads to opportunity for growth.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think, the words that I've heard you say, Jenny, before, which is kind of this idea of like when we're in these times, you can look around and seeing who's trying to help.
Yeah, that was Mr. Rogers' mom said that. She said, when there's terrible things happening in the world, look for the helpers. There's always someone helping.
And then if you have more of a paranormal or psychic perspective on spirituality and what's going on in the world too, you can look at things with a different lens, and that may make it easier for you to help other people, because that would also help those other people be able to make the same decisions too in turn. I think that's going to be one of the challenges for people who have backgrounds in the paranormal or psychic abilities and stuff like that, is to be able to be more open with those abilities and be exposed to the mainstream, because that's the way I think we're going to eventually get this over to people, to say that what we're doing and saying and feeling is not unusual, but it's really the mainstream. This is the way reality really is. And I've mentioned the Theosophical Society. They have in their objects, to study comparative religion, to study the sciences and philosophy, and then to also study the natural, what should I say, if I'm paraphrasing, the paranormal abilities and humanity and stuff. But what I think the real version of reality is going to be, is not going to be based on any one religion or all religions. It's not going to be based on science. It's not going to be based on the paranormal. It's going to be based on all three. You're going to need all three to really get a true picture of what our reality really is. And I think that's going to be the revelation that people will find in the next few years.
And there's been so much talk about this, what's going to happen, this transition that's supposed to take place.
Yes.
My question is how do we know when it happens, or will we know that it happened? How do we know it hasn't happened already? And maybe the 3D experience we're having now means we didn't make it. I don't know. Because that's been my question is like very much many guests we've had on this show, many conversations we've had, channelings that Jenny has done, messages that so many of my medium friends have gotten, have talked about kind of what's coming up. But it never really says like, we'll know that it's happened because it'll be like this. It's just kind of, it's coming, or has it, or will it, or I don't know. Questions that I have. No one wants to talk about that.
No. I think I could give you some explanations for what it might look like, but it would take about 15 minutes to kind of work up to that. If you'd be willing to try it.
Yeah, come on. Mm-hmm. Frosty needs some answers here, Mark.
Come on. I'm my full thing.
I've just gotten to the point where I wondered if I didn't wind up in the Back to the Future Biff timeline. And I've been concerned about this for a while that I got on the wrong timeline somehow. So yeah, if there's any way to
where the principal's trying to shoot you with a shotgun when you came out of the street. Yeah.
Let me hit my fade out button here and just leave you guys.
You want me to accidentally hit the button again?
Yeah. There you go. And then you can hit the button to bring me back.
Okay.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about was different dimensions. And we talked about this before we got on camera here for the podcast, is a lot of people have come up with personal experiences, subjective information, stories, stuff like that about near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, mediumship abilities, channeling instances and stuff like that. And it's all interesting. And you talk about this on your podcast, and there's hundreds of podcasts that are on this subject and stuff, thousands or tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people talking about it here in the U.S., millions all around the world. Mm-hmm. But no one's going to sit up and take notice of it until you can prove or explain something that particle physics or mainstream science can't explain. And I think that's what's going to be the real kicker for 2026. That would, if you want to say, do the Wheel of Fortune, as you said in your January show, is spin the wheel and have people be completely open about paranormal abilities, psychic paranormal experiences and stuff, but wrap it up in it's normal because reality is different from what people generally believe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've been saying for a number of years is that reality is really wave-based as opposed to particle-based. And people talk about energies, they talk about frequencies, they talk about vibrations, but nobody's put two and two together to say, well, we're talking about all this stuff, so why can't we just say we're in a wave-based reality instead of that? And that's one of the things that I think would help people is if they have a model, and I'll say a theoretical model, that they can turn to and say, this is why I'm saying all this stuff is because I believe it's mainstream, is because reality is different from what we believe, because I think reality is more this than that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I wanted to say is, how can you have multiple wave-based realities in the same physical space? I talked about, or I wanted to talk about this right here. If you know about a tesseract in the fourth dimensional geometric space, this is what it looks like when you unfold it. It looks like a three-dimensional cross with mm-hmm. 8 separate cubes in it. But if you look at it and say, these cubes are three-dimensional cubes in a fourth dimensional space. And people don't know what to do with this. They don't know what to do with this shape.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to say is if you think of a tesseract as a 2 by 2 by 2 cube, as opposed to this open cross, it gives you the ability to look at things differently in terms of reality. And one of the things I could say, and I'm going to get you. If I lose you, bring me back. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things you can say about this is that this cube, one of those cubes inside of this big cube, can be a fourth dimensional cube too. So you can make 8 cubes out of it, just like you have this 8 cubes of the big cube. So you can take it down from 8 to 64 to 512. You can keep going down into the millions, is splitting up these little cubes. And it sounds complicated, but it's not. And what I really wanted to say is look around you in nature here on the earth. You have all these plants, all these animals, different human beings and stuff, minerals, crystals, all these other things all around the earth, but they're all in their own environment. We don't interact with squirrels. We don't interact with animals in the woods and stuff. They're all in their own environment. They're all in their own reality, but they're all coexisting in the same physical space. And that's what I want to say about this cube or subcube within a cube, subcube within a subcube within a subcube, is you can keep going down to where there's so many realities on this earth in our physical space that they're all interacting. But you say, how can we see them all? And there's a concept called interpenetration that explains all that. And what interpenetration is, I'll give you an example of it, is say you have a big glass jar and you have a pile of rocks, pebbles, and sand next to it. And if you put the big rocks inside the glass jar, you say, is the jar full? And it may be full of the big rocks, but there's still gaps between the big rocks. So you put the pebbles in and you shake the jar, you get them all settled in, and you say, is it full now? But there's still gaps between the pebbles.
Yeah.
So you put the sand in, you do that. You know where I'm going to. But what you end up with is an interpenetrated rocks, pebbles, and sand in the same space. And just like that, you can have interpenetration here on Earth, where all the plants, all the animals, all the human beings are together in the same space, and they're interpenetrated. But you say, well, particle physics doesn't allow for that, but wave physics does. And you say, so then what does that mean? Is maybe our reality is wave-based instead of particle-based. And you say, what's an example of that? And I've said this in previous episodes, is AM, FM radio, television, Wi-Fi networks, satellite communications. All these things are coexisting in the same physical space because they're transmitting on different frequencies. But it's a coexistence. It's an interpenetration. So it exists in nature, and it's all wave-based. So that gives you a way to say we live in a wave-based reality instead of a particle-based reality. And you can even look at the outer space, and you can see all these different planets, solar systems, stars, nebula, quasars. You keep going on, all the different celestial objects. They're just as interpenetrated as we are here on Earth. So that's just adding another layer to that to say that not only are we in a wave-based reality on Earth, we're in a wave-based reality in outer space as well.
Okay. Well, I wanted to bring up one of the things that it brought to my mind here. I want to see if this is also connected, talking about wave-based realities. I know it hasn't been super recent, but it's been relatively recent where we've discovered that there were proposed theoretical before gravitational waves that have not been proven as well. So gravity is also working on waves. Would that also kind of be connected to what you're talking about here?
I think science is gradually moving toward the wave-based structures too. But there's so many people that are so embedded with particle physics or even, variations of quantum mechanics that they still involve particles at some point. They can't go over to a fully wave-based reality.
I think I've heard something about that going with light too. Like there's been debates about that as well, going along with the gravity. So, and then the other thing I wanted to mention real quick is we did have one of our viewers, Denise, asked, is this related to quantum physics? Are we talking about quantum physics here, or is this something different?
I think it's different. I think it's going fully wave-based as opposed to quantum mechanics or particle-based physics. It's a completely different thing because you can have, like I said, interpenetration, but you can explain all sorts of other things too that you couldn't explain before. And I think that's what gives this version, of reality its predictive power.
So before.
Well, I was going to come back to what we were talking about earlier about ascension because I wanted to get this conversation out of the way. I know you wanted to get this conversation out of the way too because I was getting pretty technical with stuff.
Well, there was a couple of things that I've thought about those. So when you're talking about like the Earth, like if you were looking down at the jar and we're kind of shaking things down a little bit, but you still have that gap in those spaces. We were talking about the Earth specifically in that example. But when you're talking about things that like deal with like spooky action at a distance and things like that, could we just be looking at us and the universe as a whole being in that jar?
Yes, you could. And the universe as a whole is all interpenetrated. And I think if you read people talking about, alien conversations and stuff, they say everything is interconnected. And if you let go a bunch of nuclear bombs here on Earth, it could destroy the whole universe if certain things happen. That's why it's so dangerous what people are doing, and they feel like it's so easy to press a button or flip a switch or threaten somebody with this or that, but they don't realize what the implications are. And if you look at, and I'm going to take an aside here, I want to come back to Ascension because I wanted to explain Ascension with wave-based physics. But if you go back to Nagasaki and Hiroshima in the 1940s and the nuclear bombs that went off there, if there were multiple planes of existence there, not only the physical, but the etheric, the astral, the mental, the causal, and formless, that atomic bomb could have wiped out all of those different dimensions in that space, not only just the physical. And I think that's one thing that people didn't realize because they had a different worldview. And they probably still have, a lot of people still have that same worldview. But if you have more of a wave-based worldview with the idea that it could be multi-dimensional and that there's life in these other planes of existence and these other three-dimensional realities that I showed you here, with Earth maybe being having 4 spatial dimensions instead of 3, you could explain all these non-physical realities. And now getting back to Ascension.
Yes.
And then we can go off from there. I just want to tackle that before we go off onto some other thing. Is you asked, what does Ascension look like? It could look like another reality here on Earth, just like, we have the animals coexisting with us and plants. People who are in that new reality could be having their own existence that would be separate from people who aren't ascending. So there's people you may know, or you may know, or you may be having an easier go of it than somebody else. And it may be that you're already, marked for ascension, is because your life is a little easier, it's more comfortable than somebody else's. And that's what ascension could look like, is that since we're interpenetrated on this planet, is everybody could have their own reality that they're living in, but the people who are ascending are going to have a different reality from the people who aren't.
So are we kind of talking like similar to this concept of karma or dharma, like this idea that your position in the world has been based on your ascension?
Excuse me. Wait a minute. Let me get drink from my...
Hit the button, Jenny. Hit the button.
The Witching Hours, original Witching Hours mug.
Yeah, I know you can't get that thing anymore, right?
Yeah. So I think karma or dharma has something to do with it, and that people who are more on the path of ascension have worked through, as you may hear people say, do the shadow work, do the hurts and the traumas, revisit all those, transmute them. You may hear people say transmute the bad experiences you've had, or other people may have said use something like neuro-linguistic programming to go back and revisit bad times or bad experiences that you've had, and then just mentally change those experiences to be positive or to be neutral. But you go through and you do your shadow work through all these negative things that have happened to you or that you may have done to somebody else, things that you've said that you regret. Go through all these things and work through them, and that gets rid of the karma. But it's a necessary component to your ascension too, is you have to get rid, not totally, but you have to go through the shadow work to raise your vibrations to get to that point where you can be capable of ascending. I think that for the people who are on this podcast, they know about it, they're aware of it, so they're ahead of the game already too. But
yeah, I mean that's interesting, because I mean that's one of the questions that I've had. I've talked to Jenny about this, too, is like this idea that there's this change coming, the shift. But of course, I guess everybody wants to know the $1 million question, which is, what is it? What exactly is it and what it's going to look like? And I think that's interesting that maybe you wouldn't recognize that the shift had occurred. And that's what I have become kind of wondering about, if it's just going to be this thing that kind of happens and we're just kind of move on to the next phase.
Right. Well, let me give you another explanation then too that's a little more radical. Is have you ever seen a flock of geese migrating south? In the air, they fly in a V shape and stuff like that, and the leader breaks the wind for all the others to have an easier go of their flight.
Yes.
There's also a term called quantum jumping, and this is different from the paranormal metaphysical term for it, but it's a scientific term in quantum mechanics, is that when you apply or inject energy into a orbiting electron, that electron won't gradually move up from one orbital to the next higher orbital. It just immediately jumps to the next higher orbital, and they call that quantum jumping. But it requires energy for you to do that jump. So you think, I'm going to throw in another variable here, the 144,000 that they talk about, in Revelation, the people that are marked, for special purposes in Revelation and the Bible and stuff like that. But that 144,000 could be beings of a very high vibration that would be those lead geese that could help raise the vibration of everybody on the planet. And the people who are up to the point or already have a raised vibration to where they could raise even higher to where they would pass a point of quantum jumping, they would just jump from this existence into another existence. So I don't know which one of the two, or if both would happen, or if neither would happen, but it's two different explanations that you could have.
I like the second one a lot.
Dolores Cannon, in her book, The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, she mentions both of those things. She doesn't put it succinctly as being A or B or whatever, but she mentions both types of options, or describes both types of options, but in a much different way. And I think she's a good book, or she has a good book to read, that The New Earth and the Three Waves of Volunteers by Dolores Cannon. That would tell you a lot about Ascension.
Well, that's interesting. I want to make a comment about that in a second, but I do want to let everybody know that we have reached the top of the hour. It is 9:00 on the East Coast of the United States here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight, for everyone joining us over on the Spirit Realm Network on Facebook, and everyone joining us over on Twitch. You're making it worthwhile to be in here a little bit under the weather tonight. So thank you for all of the questions and comments and chatter going on. We always appreciate it. So thank you guys. We appreciate that. Our guest tonight is Mark Hunter Brooks, if you've joined us since the beginning. And so we're talking about this smashing of spiritual and science and all of these wonderful things. As we had a comment earlier about loving the technical talk that we're having tonight, and so that's what sixth time that Mark Hunter Brooks has been on, and that's why, because we love these conversations as well. So as I just mentioned over on one of the streams, if you have a question or a comment tonight, and if you have a specific question for Mark Hunter Brooks, please make sure that you put that in the chat, and we will get that passed over and try to get that answered for you tonight. All right. If you are watching the show or hanging out with us now, then you already know Medium Jenny Lee. But did you know you can book a private session, explore her spiritual services, or check out her latest content all in one place? Head over to mediumjennylee.com. Whether you're seeking guidance, answers from beyond, or just curious about what the spirit world has to say, Jenny offers personal readings, mentorship, and more. Don't miss your chance to connect directly. Visit mediumjennylee.com and take the next step on your spiritual journey. Your journey to the weird is just a click away. In a world of mass production, there's still a place where fire meets steel and tradition comes alive. At Vincent's Forge, every piece is forged by hand, unique, durable, and built to last. Each creation carries the mark of true craftsmanship. Own something forged by fire. Own something that tells a story. Vincent's Forge, handcrafted, unforgettable. Available now on Etsy. Well, I was going to say, Jenny, there's a little bit of synchronicity with that, because you've been talking to me a little bit about Dolores Cannon this week. So it's interesting that came up.
Mark, I think that you can read a lot faster than me, because I have so many books and I haven't read them.
I've gotten rid of so many books. After my book came out, I got rid of a lot.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned that you had gotten rid of some. So I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks because I have a lot of time to listen, but I don't have a lot of time to read. So I actually just started listening to Keepers of the Garden, Dolores Cannon, which is about ET lives. Okay. So that's been really interesting, and there's been some things in there that have clicked for me. But I wanted to go back to what you said about the nuclear bombs and how it could have affected other dimensions, not just the third dimension. That was actually part of we talk about the raw material with you a lot because there's always some sort of parallel, but that was also brought up in the raw material that those bombs did affect the other things. And I can't remember the specifics, but it damaged the soul consciousness energy of the people that were in it and the things that were in it. Yeah.
Right. I would believe it.
So what, like specifically, like it kind of set us behind maybe on this ascension, or it's something completely different, like on another level?
From what I can remember, it harmed the actual soul energy and consciousnesses of the people and animals and plants and things that were destroyed in them.
And in other planes of existence too, I would think impacts as well. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I probably did say before too, Robert Monroe and his book, Ultimate Journey, page 13 of that book, he talks about how he and some other people went out of body and explored the solar system and the planets and moons and stuff. And he said they didn't find an existence of physical life elsewhere in the solar system. But he said that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of non-physical beings that existed in the solar system too. So these other planes of existence are very active. And it's not just the physical. The physical existence is maybe just for the people here on Earth because of what we're going through in this densest of realities. But, there's so many other realities. And if you say that there's 7 non-physical realities, it would exist not only on Earth, but on Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Mercury, Venus, even in the asteroid belt. Maybe that planet would be still a planet and a non-physical existence, plane of existence too. So, and then you have suns for each one of those different environments as well, those different planes of existence. Or if you wanted to even say the single sun is projecting sunlight, and if you believe in prana and other types of energy, projecting that to all the different planets, so provide the energy and the light and stuff to them as well. One of the questions people had relates to the double slit experiment, or the measurement problem, or the wave particle duality. And they say, how can light or a photon be both a particle and a wave? And I'll give you an explanation for that. I don't know if I've said this one before.
I don't think so.
But it's good if you wanted to justify multiple dimensions or multiple planes of existence on Earth or on other planets, is to say, how can light penetrate all these different realities all at the same time? And have you ever heard of a technique called modulation? They use it in AM and FM radio to keep music and speech and singing and stuff all on the same frequency that they transmit on. What they do is they take the song, or I'll just use a song for an example. They take a song and they combine it with a carrier frequency, that's just a set frequency, merge those two waves together, and then they transmit that modulated wave out over the air. And then when a radio receives that, or somebody receives that in their device, they strip away the carrier wave and they get the music. So that's modulation. So I think every reality that we have, let's say just for the four physical realities on Earth, you have the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, and then it goes 13, 21, 27, maybe 32 or 35, something like that. But each one of those standing wave frequencies could be a different reality. But how could sunlight, and I'm using this for an example, I'm not saying it is, but it's still for people to research or whatever. But how could light be transmitted or passed on to all these different realities? Is that the light coming from the sun doesn't have a carrier wave attached to it. So when it hits the Earth, it's going to hit all those different realities all at the same time. But how is it going to turn into a particle? Is when somebody observes it, it's going to attach that carrier frequency to it and change it from a wave into a particle, so that it becomes tied into that reality. And that would be my explanation for wave particle duality.
Yeah. And I guess I just want to say, for people who aren't familiar with the double slit experiment, that's kind of I guess the basic way to explain that is that things can be kind of everywhere all at one time. Is that kind of the easiest way that I think about it in my head? Or do you want to define that any better for people not familiar with that experiment?
I was going to say, as long as you don't observe something, it will, or if you don't observe light or a photon, it'll behave like a wave. But if you observe it, either mechanically or with your eyes, it'll behave as a particle.
Yeah.
And I think it's that act of observation that imparts the carrier frequency or a carrier wave to it that locks it into a particle existence. But I'm not saying that's it. And there's a lot more, or a lot of other answers that physicists and people with a whole lot more background on real life or reality have than I have. So just one example.
Or, even things that we haven't gotten to yet, that we just haven't developed the science for. And like I said before, like we just kind of were able to prove gravitational waves. I mean, who knows the discovery that we're going to make in 2 years that completely, is completely possible. Like, I mean, the scientists that are expecting they're expecting for these discoveries to be made. They're just kind of waiting for it to happen. So, there could be lots of stuff that comes out to go towards this gravitation. This wave based. Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important for people to be open about their spiritual experiences, their psychic experiences, abilities, paranormal abilities and experiences and stuff, is to start generating that vibe or whatever, I don't know the right word to say, start generating the chatter that gets people thinking about it more. But to say reality is wave-based, reality is multidimensional, there's multiple realities, multiple planes of existence, and here's why. And you can use, and the example I was going to use was you could prove or show that infinity exists in nature, which is something that scientists say to mathematicians it can't exist because it violates the principle of the law of conservation of matter and energy, which says in a closed environment you can't create or destroy matter or energy, but you can transform it from one to the other.
Yeah.
And so they say infinity can't exist in nature because they don't have that kind of existence in science, is that it goes on without end. But if you try to, or one of the things that I talked about in this paper that I sent you guys is that you look at the different, what should I say, scale orders of magnitude in space and whatever, and their existence. I think I'm going to get myself into a corner if I do this. So just do that. But just let me say that you can prove or show that infinity exists in space in a wave-based environment, that you can't do it in a particle-based environment. And I think that's what's going to get science to stand up and take notice of this, is when people can start using these concepts and ideas and theories to make predictions about things that science and particle physicists can't traditionally explain.
So
that's what has to happen. People have to go through and do that. Instead of just talking about it, they have to do something like that. That's kind of where I am right now.
So right now, the most recent I've heard, from our, kind of quantum-based scientists, quantum physicists and stuff, is talking about, whether the universe is expanding and will eventually contract, or whether it will just continue to expand. But what we're saying here is it's possible through waves to have a infinite universe.
You could, or it could be that. And I'll refer to a book by Itzhak Ben Bentov. It's Stalking the Wild Pendulum and A Brief Survey of Consciousness. There are two books that he wrote, but he's the only guy that I ever read who talks about existences beyond our universe. And he described the shape of the universe as the shape of a hen's egg. And so we're coming out of the middle into the pointed end of the egg, and then making the circle back around to the back end of the egg to go into the middle again. So what we may see as expansion is just this growth of coming out of the middle of the egg into the outer edge and going around the outside. But at some point you'll see the contraction start again. And as we go back in through the back end of that egg into the middle, and into, if you want to say, a universal black hole that would destroy the matter and stuff, you have an eternal cycle that takes place where the white hole creates the new matter and the black hole destroys it. But it's an ever circulating, eternal cyclical process. That's what he described.
Gotcha.
And I like that instead of saying that it's infinite, because it's something that you can support and say exists eternally. Or
cyclical.
Eternally.
Yeah.
The infinity symbol is two egg-shaped things pointing at each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have a question here. I don't know if this is the right platform, but could you speak about astral projection? What is astral projection? Do you have any?
What is it, or how to do it, or what?
Could you speak to astral projection?
Yeah.
Say that again.
Could you speak to astral projection?
Oh, I think
you think it's possible, or how does it happen?
Oh, I think it's real. I know people that do it, and I don't. I've taken classes on it, and I got almost all the way out, all except my right arm. But I did that at the Monroe Institute about 10 years ago.
Cool.
But people do it. The key is, or what the principle is that we have a spiritual body inside this physical body, and our consciousness is energetic as opposed to our body, which is physical. And if you want to look at it in terms of a formula like Einstein's E equals mc squared, that E is like the energy of consciousness, and the matter, the M, is like the matter of consciousness. So if you slow down below the speed of light, you're going to have a matter existence, but you have a consciousness that exists as faster than the speed of light on the energetic side. So I'm just trying to say there's two different types of consciousness going on. There's the physical consciousness of your body. There's the energetic consciousness of our being that comes down into it. Because of this, we have the ability to separate from that physical body, and that's what astral projection is. But when you astral project, if you're doing it for the first time, you're going to astral project into the etheric dimension or the etheric plane that's tightly connected with the earth. And if you wanted to astral project into other planes of existence, you're going to have to go out of body, out of your energetic body to go to the astral, and then out of your astral body to go to the mental, if you wanted to go up in those other dimensions. But I think there's beings that would want to try and keep you from doing that, because they want you to have this experience of life here in the physical existence as part of your consciousness development, and to be exposed to the astral and the mental and these other dimensions that are more afterlife dimensions or planes of existence that would destroy your education ability or whatever here on the physical world. I hope that helps. Did that do it for you, Denise?
Yes, she said fascinating.
Okay. Just a thought. But yes, you can do it, and people do it. And there's also groups of people called invisible helpers, if you've ever heard of that. Mm-hmm. There's a Theosophical Society book written by Charles Leadbeater on invisible helpers, and he describes people that help folks who are in need or in emergency situations, or they'll help escort people to the afterlife after like car accidents or acts of war or murders or whatever, people who just can't make it there on their own. There's people here on the planet that do that every night, and they'll go out, whether they're conscious of it or not, they'll go out every night to help other people. And there's some theosophical books that talk about that as well, or about the experiences of people who have done that.
I have a client that I work with on a regular basis who has been guided to do that by spirit. Was told that she needed to be starting to use her abilities to go help others, and that when they were experiencing her, they wouldn't understand who or what she was. You know, like they might think of her as something other than what she is, and not realize that she's just a person that's living too. You know,
right. Mm. And there's a book author. His name is Kurt Leland, Leland. He wrote a book called The Multidimensional Man. And in chapter 1, he talks about his invisible helper training. And his book is about a half to 2/3 on astral projection and invisible helper work. So that would be a good book to read. It's more technical. It's not novelistic or telling stories and stuff. But that first chapter is impressive with what he talks about and the training he went through.
Well, it definitely brings the conversation back around again, because we started off talking about helping people, right? Even just on the third dimensional part of it, three-dimensional, but also that doesn't stop. That can continue all the way through the other, which, you know, I guess we've talked about. I mean, that's really what's going on, is this helping from other dimensions or realms or however you want to describe
and
it.
actually, there's a Theosophical Society presentation that Kurt gave. You can look on YouTube. Look at Kurt Leland and Theosophical Society. He did something about 7 years ago where he talked about the process you go through in your own conscious development. But he says as a prerequisite, before you do invisible helper work, they want you to do volunteerism and helping people, helping the poor and the disabled and the people who are at need. Help them in the physical world first before you try and help them in the astral world. He said, why would you want to go to the ghettos of the non-physical world when you aren't willing to go to the ghettos and the physical world? So that was one of his comments. And then also too, you need to read up on astral projection and these the non-physical worlds and stuff like that, so that when you experience them, it won't be something that would invoke fear or, a negative response. You'll have an idea of what it's all about. So you'll be more relaxed whenever you get into that environment. So they say, read up on it ahead of time, volunteer and do things to help other people in the physical world before you step into that role in the non-physical world. And there are beings on the planet who are looking for folks who would be candidates for those types of roles. And so don't think that you have to raise your hand and say, I'm here, I want to do this. There's people who are looking at you all the time. They may not be doing it with their actual eyes. They'll be doing it energetically, but there's people that would be evaluating you and your candidacy for continuing on to do stuff like this. So that's,
Speaking of the ghettos, that was a funny part of the Keepers of the Garden that I just listened to yesterday. Was the man was, speaking from the perspective of his otherworldly life and saying that basically that's what Earth was. As we were just the ghetto of the universe, and nobody wanted to come here because we can't keep ourselves straight. And it's not funny, but I kind of thought it was. Well, we're trying to change it, people. We're trying to fix it.
This is the densest reality of the physical and non-physical worlds and stuff. So there's all that stuff going on. And you can go back to interpenetration again, too. You can have an easier life, here, as well as a tougher life. But then also, too, if you think of a gym going to work out with weights and stuff, the way you increase your strength is to exercise against resistance. So instead of having an easy life, you may want to or ask to be given, nasty siblings, people who would, do mean things to you and stuff like that. Nasty friends, nasty coworkers, all those people who are in need or have special requirements or stuff like that, or special needs people. They would give you these special requirements to let you exercise against resistance to develop your consciousness.
I think the exercise against resistance idea and phrase is exactly what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And it's like we have to experience challenging things in order to grow. We have to exercise against resistance in order to gain strength. It's like,
yeah.
There's an old book that I liked. It was about Corrie ten Boom. It's called The Hiding Place. I don't know if you've ever heard about that. She was active in World War II in Holland, hiding Jews from the Nazis. And she did that for 2 years, hiding Jews behind a fake wall in their house in Holland. And someone ratted them out, and she was taken to concentration camps and stuff like that. But she was put initially in isolation for a month, and her only friend was an ant that would crawl underneath the door during the day and then go back out at night. And she had that. She lived in a barracks full of lice and fleas. She had all sorts of other things going on. Her sister died while she was there because of the brutality of the guards. But if you look at it from a spiritual standpoint, it was exercise against resistance, because she had all these traumas that allowed her to have so much more love for other people as a result. But I like to think of that book when, I talk about exercising against resistance, because she had one of the more extreme examples of that during an extreme time of World War II.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Right before you're getting ready to say that, I was just getting ready to say, as a historian, I think the one thing that I've taken away really recently, because I've had a lot of students, kind of want to talk about it, which is the idea of how sad history is. I've heard I've had quite a few conversations where people are like, I really, enjoy, this, and, it's very interesting, but man, this is depressing. Everything is depressing when you look at human history, and almost no matter what time frame you go back to, it is a lot of depressing, horrible things that human beings do to one another. But at the same time, there is the beauty of when those things are overcome, usually for a brief moment. The moment of successes that we have and overcoming, and looking back and seeing the helpers, and going back and seeing how humans can do horrible things to each other, but we can also be very wonderful to each other. And so for those moments that we have, so I think that kind of just backs us up, almost like this is just a breeding ground or a training ground, let's say, for those kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Mark, we're down to the last 4 minutes. Yes. Are you working on anything new?
Just that paper that I sent you guys.
Awesome. What's your plans for it?
Maybe a 5th book.
Okay.
But I probably need some financial help on this 5th book, because I paid for the first 4. And this 5th one, I've written a lot of stuff that's all in pieces, and I need to kind of put it all together. But it's starting to come together. I hope maybe somebody will listen to this podcast and say, maybe he's somebody that we need to help out.
Yes.
Speaking of helpers.
It was between my first and second book was a year. My second and third book was 2 years. And my third and fourth book was 4 years or 3 years. And so I think the 4th and 5th book is going to be about 4 years, which is 2026.
That's this year.
So that may be a goal for me this year.
Awesome.
But then also too, to be, like we said earlier, is to be more open about our experiences, and to say it's because reality is different from what people believe, and it's not weird, it's mainstream. And the more people talk about it and relate it to this wave-based multidimensional reality, I think the more traction we'll start getting with these things.
Yeah. And it is becoming more mainstream. I think we see it every day. That these things, these ideas are becoming more and more talked about. And to bring it all the way back to the very beginning of the show, where we talked about ET and this kind of confusing things that are being connected with disclosure, all of these things are combining together, though, and people are aware of them, and people are starting to see through some of the manipulation and confusion, and so we're moving there. So we do. I just want to note before we run out of time here that we do have a link up at the top of the chat where you can go and check out Mark's books on Amazon. So click on that link and you can go there. If you enjoyed the conversation tonight, you can dive a little deeper by checking out some of the wonderful books from Mark Hunter Brooks. And for those who are listening at another time and place, we'll have those that link down below in the description as well. So you can click there and check those things out, and maybe click the buy button and have something cool to read there. So Keisha just said again, 6-time guest, exactly. Wonderful. And I not to have a spoiler alert or anything, but we would love to have you back for a 7th. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mark. Yeah, we always enjoy, and now, at one point we were 2 hours, now we're an hour and a half. So now that conversation even comes down even sooner.
That's what CMC just said. That was a fast podcast.
Yeah, it was fast for me too. So I was amazed how quickly everything went.
6-time broadcast champion host.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. So for all of you who are listening at another time and another place, we will see you all next time.